Many newcomers to the old Pueblo have never seen anything but a wall of plywood here at 17 West Congress Street. But as you can see, there is a ticket booth and a theater entrance at this location. Up until 1974, it was the Fox Tucson Theatre. And now, 36 years later, work is underway to restore this historic old movie palace to its full splendor and glory. What'll it take to do this? We'll have a progress report for you this morning as we revisit this downtown landmark. Stay with us. We are coming to you this morning from inside the Fox Tucson Theatre downtown. We are in the lobby right now, and we're going to be kind of bringing you an update on how things have gone since we last visited this classic historic building in downtown Tucson. My guest is Herb Stratford, the Executive Director of the Fox Tucson Theatre Foundation. Herb, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you.
And as we've seen, there has been some progress. The front of the structure is now visible. The plywood is down, as we mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit more about what do you call that out there? The box office area, or it's not the lobby?
I've been calling it the entryway, because that's, for lack of a better term, I think that's probably a good
All right,
one.
we'll talk about the entryway in a moment. In the meantime, if you would, remind us again about what is the Fox Tucson Theatre Foundation?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit foundation, which basically means that donations are tax deductible, and what we are doing is fits into the government's description of a charitable and artistic endeavor that is for the good of the community and therefore tax-free. We are a board composed of community members and representatives of the community, which will oversee the restoration of the project and then the operation of the project to make sure that the community continues to have a voice in what happens here in this building.
Why do you want to restore this theater?
Well, there's a couple reasons. I think one, just it's a personal mission for me. I want to see it happen, but also this theater is really a touchstone, a landmark for a lot of people who grew up in this town, and it brings back a lot of memories, and I think it can aid in some downtown revitalization. And I don't want to get lumped into that. This is not the only reason we're doing it, but I think the residual effect of having this theater open is going to encourage additional infill in the retail segment downtown. So I think 5 years from now, or 5 years after it's open, I think people will look at this and say, wow, this is one of the cornerstones of things changing.
Now, when this theater was built 70 years ago, I think the construction price was something in the neighborhood of $300,000. Now, you're acquiring it for something pretty close to that from the Reliance Corporation.
Yeah, $250,000 is what we will be paying for the building, and we're going to be closing later this month on that. Obviously, there's a lot more that needs to go into it from that, but yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting fact that they spent $200,000 to build it and $100,000 to outfit it in terms of seating and projectors and things.
Now, when we talked 5 months ago in this program and first brought your plans to public attention, there was plywood in front of the building, and you had stated then that it was first objective was to get that down so that people could be reminded that there is actually a theater here. How was this part of the process accomplished?
What happened was the city manager's office had issued a call for the second year for downtown project grants, and we applied for money to restore the entryway, and we received a grant for $25,000, and that grant paid for what you see out at the street, and we really felt that that was an important thing to get that face back on the theater, to show people that we're for real.
And in that process, you made some remarkable discoveries. There was some tile there you didn't know was there.
Yeah, there's some tile that's on the columns that is original from 1930 that had been covered up in 1956. The original ceiling had been covered up in 56 as well, and we uncovered both of those. And the interesting thing is we had photographs of some of it, but we didn't know what the real colors were because they were black and white. And the ceiling has a wonderful frieze decoration, which we had never seen in a photograph or anything, but it was original. So. And
so what we're looking at now is pretty much the way it was during its heyday.
Yeah, a lot of it is. The ticket booth is still from the 50s, and the terrazzo floor is from the 50s. But those are elements that we're going to have to, further down the road, figure out what needs to stay and what needs to go. So it's kind of a blend of 1930 and 1956 out there.
Your intent really is to try to take it back to the 30s, though, correct?
Yeah, our intent is to try and make this building just like it was on opening night in 1930, but with state-of-the-art sound, projection, code, everything else.
Now, is it your intent to keep the box office in the entryway, or do you know at this point?
Yeah, I think we'd like to keep it out there. We're going to reconstruct the original 1930 ticket booth, and I think that's kind of one of the nice things about this theater is it has that old style ticket booth.
And you also want to restore the marquee.
Yeah, we want to restore and put up the original rectangular marquee and then the big neon vertical sign, which was the largest neon sign in the state.
That's going to have to be recreated, though, right? I mean, that's long gone.
Yeah, it's long gone, and actually it's better because it'll be lighter now and it'll be more efficient, and it's a good thing.
And a little bit later on in the program, we want to mention that there will be an event coming up May 13th that will help hopefully restore, generate some public donations to this, and also create some interest in what's going on here. We'll talk a little more about that. And also we want to kind of look at the interior, and we can actually go in the auditorium now. There's lights in there, and it has been cleaned up a little bit, and we want to do all that and talk more about your vision and what's going to happen here and who's helping you. And we will do that when we come back. My guest is Herb Stratford, the Executive Director of the Fox Tucson Theatre Foundation. Herb, having moved inside now from the lobby area, it strikes me that given everything that is happening here from a cleanup standpoint, there must be a lot of help that has come forth to assist in this effort.
Absolutely. That's one of the heartwarming kind of side stories of this whole project is right now I've got about a list of about 70 volunteers who have just called me off of seeing things like your program or seeing articles in the paper and have just said, I want to help. I can't write you a big check, but I'll come down and help haul garbage out of the theater. I'll come down and do whatever I can. And so I've got kind of a Friends of the Fox group going, and that coupled with my support that I've gotten from local businesses, I've got probably a list of over 350 different people and companies that have just in 5 months that have come forward to help us.
And this is not clean, easy work we're talking about right now.
No, the work that we're talking about in here is gloves, goggles, breath masks. It's not for the faint at heart, and there are certain people who are more interested in, say, doing historical research or community outreach, things like that. So certain people are plugging in where they can, but surprisingly there's a lot of people who want to come in here and get dirty because they want to have that kind of a memory of helping do something with their hands.
Well, as we look around, I mean, it's still a lot to be done, and there's no joking around about that. I mean, there's still some work to be done, but we can, now that there's actually some lights in here besides the lights that we bring to the place, you can begin to see really some of the artwork and some of the detail. You can see a little bit of it behind me. And as we look around, again, we can take a look at some of the decorations, and it's still in remarkably good shape, being the fact that it's 70 years old.
Yeah, it's really, I kind of describe it as a time capsule because especially in the auditorium where we are right now, with the exception of here and there the seats being recovered, part of the wall being repainted, it's really largely the way it was when it opened in 1930. The ceiling, the lighting fixtures, everything is still here, and so it's really a step back into time.
Now you obviously need to develop, you have a vision on what's going to happen here and how you see this in 2 to 3 years or so. But there needs to be some stuff written down that says, all right, we need to do this, we need to do that. Some very rudimentary things have happened. We have electricity, there's some pipes coming in so that there can be water. And you need to get basically some architects or somebody to come in and draw up the blueprints for refurbishing this. Where do you stand in that process?
Right now, actually, we are just, the request for qualifications is due, actually, and that's asking architects to submit to us their ability to do this project. And once we review those architects who propose, we'll get one on board hopefully by June 1, and then we'll be able to do some as-built drawings which will show the condition and the location of all the elements that we need to incorporate, and then we can start kind of looking at how do we meet code once we have those. So the next step for us, I mean, aside from continual cleanup and hopefully fixing the roof and some things that we can do, is to get the big picture starting to be drawn out. And if that's in broad strokes, that's fine, but that is the next step because we need to have a master plan, you're right. And while the foundation, we have a business plan and budgets and all that type of thing, this is a concrete building. This needs to be, that's the next thing, is to figure out where we're going.
Now you've already had some architects walk through here who may very well be the ones who get the gig, as they say. What was their reaction when they came into this structure initially and started looking around? It
was pretty neat. You'd think I'd be jaded now from being in here so much and showing people, but I mean, the architects, I pretty much took them on a top-to-bottom tour, and I took them places that places you haven't been even, mechanical basements and things like that. And there was kind of a lot of pointing and oohing and eyeing and really just kind of amazed at what's here. And these are from, you know, somewhat jaded architects who have historical property experience and things like that who are qualified to do this project, because if they weren't, they wouldn't even be wasting their time coming in.
So this is something, you get a sense that the architects who are looking at this would see the potential, see the possibility, and be excited about seeing ultimately happen, aside from the fact that they may make some money in the process. You get a sense that they want to see what the finished product looks like?
Well, this is going to be a portfolio piece. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think that one of the intangibles about us selecting an architect is really going to be, who is this a passion for? Who is this not just a job on a job list? Who is going to take their grandkids here and say, I worked on this project? And that's what we're really looking for. And that's why it needs to be somebody that has a local connection, things like that, because it can't just be a job. It's got to be something that your heart and soul is in, because that's what it is for all of us who are involved already.
Now, one of the things we talked about on our earlier show that we did about the Fox Tucson Theatre, and you had alluded to it, and that's bringing things up to code, and things have changed a lot in terms of the amenities that need to be provided in a public facility over what had to be provided 30, 40 years ago. Where do we stand at this point in that? I mean, the aisles, for example, probably are too narrow.
Yeah, we've got a number of code compliance issues, and that's probably one of the more, the larger issues. You know, basically there's restoration costs, which is expensive, obviously, because to restore something is a lot more expensive than to just throw a new thing in. But code compliance is the big ticket item. And for example, sprinklers, elevators, wider aisles with handicap seating, handicap listening devices. There's a whole new kind of realm of entertainment that needs to be assessed so that everyone can have access to it. So that's some of the real intangibles that we have, because those things, the trick is, how do you squeeze them into this property without adversely affecting the historical nature of it? You don't want someone coming into this building and saying, look, sprinklers. I mean, you want them to come in and say, my God, this place is amazing. You don't want them to see the mechanical systems that you have to have in here.
Speaking of refurbishing, there was a bit of good news that you got when people started looking around in here, and that is the fact that as old as this place is, there's a surprising small amount of asbestos and even smaller amount of lead paint.
Yeah, we had an environmental study done, and it was nothing short of amazing. I mean, there was almost no lead paint. The stuff that we saw we took care of, and almost no asbestos, just in some flooring tiles. So even the environmental people said, we can't believe how clean this place is, because buildings of this nature generally are just chock full of hazardous materials, and we got really lucky that way, because that's a potential deal buster. I mean, that would, if your remediation costs are too large, it just kills a project. So we're lucky there.
We want to talk more about costs and how you can get involved and how you can help, and about an event coming up. Herb, it has occurred to me as we're speaking this morning, the last event, if you will, of any consequence that took place in here was in 1974. For all intents and purposes, this program today is the first program to originate in the Fox Tucson Theatre in quite a while.
Yes, it is. This is an honor that we're commemorating here. Yes, I believe we're the first programming to originate from here in 26 years.
What are some of the things that you envision happening in here besides movies? And one of the things we had mentioned earlier was the fact that movies of one sort or another certainly are going to be an integral part of what happens in here. What else might take place in here?
Our goal from a business standpoint is really to be as flexible and open to try and make this thing work as a business. And so to that end, we're looking at a combination of things. Film, obviously, because it was built for film, live performance, and also corporate events such as awards ceremonies, things like that, children's events, possibly brown bag events where people come in here at lunch and have a sandwich and watch a Lone Ranger serial. We want this space to be active all the time and not just on Friday and Saturday night. When this theater was built, because of all the additional lobbies and areas, they had teas, they had receptions here, and it was a center of the community. And granted, now there's other places that take over those kind of functions, and we spend more time at home in front of the TV than down in a movie theater. I think there's a real need for a facility like this, and I think given the status of this facility as being kind of a Carnegie Hall of Tucson, I think people are going to want to be here for special events, and they're going to want to have things. I mean, maybe not a wedding, but certainly events.
It's going to take about $4 million to get this thing up to where it needs to be. Where's the money coming from?
We've actually got a pretty good situation right now. We're approaching funding in a lot of different ways. We're eligible for some Rio Nuevo dollars, and so that's going to help. However, those funds are a matched funds, so that means
Did you get
we've
like
got
2.1, I think, from Rio Nuevo?
Actually, we're in a budget line for $4.2 million altogether, but there is a match required, so that's the most we could get. And we think that all told, we want to endow the property as well because we want to avoid any potential shortcomings if that happens.
An endowment would be, there'd be a fund in the bank, the interest of which would be used to make up any deficit that should occur at the end
so
of each
if you
year.
look at a bottom line of maybe $5 to $6 million, including an endowment, which the number is coming down as we get donated in-kind services, the Rio Nuevo takes up a large chunk of that, but I don't want anyone to think that we're already done and we don't need money anymore, because that's maybe, you know, 2/3 of what we need, and that requires a match, and so it's kind of half of the money and we need the other half. We're also writing foundation grants. We're having a fundraiser in May. We're doing things that are, you know, taking the checks, 150, 25. I got a couple checks in the mail today. Every little bit helps and gets us towards the bottom line.
Now, the Rio Nuevo, again, that was something voters approved, and this is essentially a downtown redevelopment plan. There's going to be a lot happening here. There's going to be probably an aquarium. The museum is going to expand. And this is a very integral part of that, which has got to be gratifying to you, given the fact that you've just kind of been hustling volunteers and spending a lot of time in this dark auditorium the past couple of years.
Yeah, it definitely is nice to see that there was support, and I think the other thing about this is the Fox is going to probably be one of the furthest east of all the Rio Nuevo projects, where a lot of them are going to be hubbed down by the freeway. And I think that once we get our big sign back up and we start doing some things, that'll draw some of the people from down there up the street and hopefully help fill Congress and get some other people going.
Well, as we said at the beginning of the program, it's just neat that you can actually see the box office, the ticket window, and the entrance to the theater now that the plywood is gone. You mentioned an event in May 13th, I believe. There's going to be something happening. 70th birthday gala.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
The Fox opened on April 11th, 1930, and we decided that you only turn 70 once, and so we wanted to do a big event. And what we're doing is a really interesting thing. It's a whole evening that starts at 6 o'clock, and it's a dinner with food from a bunch of downtown restaurants, a live and silent auction of movie memorabilia and other items, and then an outdoor movie under the stars. We're going to be showing possibly The Thin Man, a classic from the 30s, and then we're going to have dancing to a live band. So it's kind of a whole evening of celebration. We're calling it a night of 30s Hollywood glamour. So we're going to have paparazzis, red carpets, Clegg lights, martini bars, cigarette girls. We want to have a whole theme that's going to remind
That's
people.
not going to be in here.
No, it'll be at La Placita Village. Yeah, we're not ready for that yet. It'll be at La Placita Village, and the tickets are available for that. And we want to kind of make this an annual tradition and kind of remind people it's a birthday and it's a celebration of the rebirth of this theater, which is happening.
So we may have a couple in La Placita Village, and then perhaps the year 2003 we'll have one actually in here.
Yeah, that'd be the ideal thing. Yeah.
For people who are watching and they say, you know, I'd like to get tickets for that event, what all is involved in participating in May 13th?
The foundation phone number, which I believe you're going to run, is the best way to get a hold of us. There's also 4 different ticket locations spread around downtown. Tickets are available at Caliente Home Accents at Plaza Palomino, at Eric Firestone Gallery at Jostler Village up in the Northwest, at Jerry's Lee Home Market on South Meyer, and then at Metroform Limited on Stone Avenue. So we kind of spread it around town, and there are 2 different tickets. There's a $75 person ticket, which is the whole night, and then there's a $10 ticket, which is just the movie and dancing, because we really felt it was important for this fundraiser because the theater belonged to everyone, and it wasn't just a high-ticket theater, and we want everyone to be able to help if they can. And so if you have $10, maybe you can come down and help us out and have a good time.
So it's May 13th, starting at 6 o'clock.
At La Placita.
It'll be basically in the patio area of the La Placita Village,
Yes.
which is sort of across the street.
Yeah, Broadway and Stone, and we're going to have valet parking at the La Placita garage, and so make it really easy for people.
Well, let's hope that some of the enthusiasm that you have certainly shown for this project over the years passes along on the night of the 13th, and people come down and show their support and get involved in many more ways. And congratulations to the volunteers, the 70 or so people that you've recruited already. It's just an amazing job that they've done, and we'll look forward to coming back and visiting it when things are even better than they were 5 months ago.
Great. Well, thank you very much for doing this, Bob. We appreciate your ongoing interest and your support.
All right, thanks, Herb. We've been talking with Herb Stratford, the Executive Director of the Fox Tucson Theatre Foundation. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed our visit inside the Fox Tucson Theatre. We'll be back again next week with another program of interest. Until then, have a great Sunday. I'm Bob Lee.